You didn't quite know what you were feeling in the beginning, but there was something different, a force that couldn't be explained rationally, a quiet magnetism, a connection that seemed to have existed even before the first glance. It felt like love, or at least what you believed love to be. But over time, you started to notice that it wasn't like in the movies, that the intensity pulling you two together was slowly exposing wounds you didn't even know were there. And that's when something inside you awakened a question that wouldn't go away. Is this person really my soulmate, or am I facing my shadow? Some unions are soothing, nurturing, and flow with harmony, but others burn, demand, and pull out everything buried deep within your soul. And the most unsettling part is that, on the surface, they can look exactly the same. What changes is what they awaken inside you, and that's where the mystery lives. Because not all pain comes from a lack of love. Sometimes it comes from the depth of connection, from mirrors that reveal what you've been hiding from yourself. Carl Jung believed that the most intense relationships are not those based on surface compatibility, but those that activate our unconscious. When someone awakens your shadow, they are actually offering a rare opportunity for healing. But that healing never comes without pain, never without discomfort, never without a deep dive into yourself. In marriage, this becomes even more visible, because it's in the daily living that the masks fall. Unconscious patterns come to light, and the true soul of the other reveals itself. And what you see isn't always beautiful. Sometimes, it's precisely what you've spent your life trying to avoid. And in that mirror collision, a truth is born that few dare to face. Your partner may be your soulmate, but they may also be the living embodiment of your deepest shadow. What differentiates one from the other is not how happy they make you feel, but what they awaken in you. That's why you must pay attention to the signs, subtle yet unmistakable signs. Because when you marry your soulmate, you feel a sense of reunion, a spiritual lightness, even in hard times. But when you marry your shadow, the relationship becomes an internal battlefield, a mirror forcing you to look at what you didn't want to see. And the first sign lies in your own energy. If you constantly feel drained, emotionally exhausted, like you're losing pieces of yourself, that is not normal. True love can be challenging, but it never drains your soul. It may demand growth, but not depletion. A soulmate uplifts you, even when it hurts. The shadow consumes you, even when everything looks fine. The second sign appears in repetitive cycles. You find yourself reliving the same arguments, the same triggers, the same feelings of abandonment, rejection, or control. It's like time doesn't move forward, and the relationship is stuck in an emotional loop. This is typical of a shadow-based bond. It traps you in circles because it's trying to show you an unconscious pattern that hasn't healed yet. With a soulmate, challenges also arise, but they bring learning. The cycle closes, and you level up. There is growth, not stagnation. Another key sign is the level of emotional freedom you feel in the relationship. A soulmate doesn't require you to erase yourself to keep things going. They see your whole being and accept even your imperfections. They don't try to mold you. On the contrary, they hold space for you, even when you're falling apart. The shadow, however, is uncomfortable with your authenticity. It demands that you shrink, control your emotions, and become what the other wants. And the more you try to please, the more distant you feel from your true self. In marriage, this shows up as a sense of invisible captivity, disguised as commitment. You feel like you can't breathe without asking for permission, like you must always explain yourself, like you're constantly walking on eggshells. That is not the foundation of a soulmate connection. That is the ego trying to control love out of fear of loss. True love never suffocates. It sets you free. You must also observe what the relationship activates in your body. The body never lies. And if being near your partner puts you in a constant state of tension, anxiety, insomnia, or physical discomfort, something is misaligned. A soulmate may challenge you emotionally, but they calm your nervous system. You feel peace, even in the storm. The shadow, on the other hand, puts your whole being into a state of war, because it's not just confronting you, it's exposing something you've been avoiding for years. But perhaps the strongest sign comes when you try to step away. With a soulmate, there is a field of connection that remains even in moments of distance. Their presence continues living inside you, like a root deep enough to steady you when life shakes. But with the shadow, distance brings a strange relief, as if you can finally breathe, as if that bond had been weighing on you more than you were willing to admit. And that speaks volumes. Of course, no relationship is perfect. Even a soulmate can touch wounds you'd rather avoid. But there is a clear difference between pain that heals and pain that destroys. A soulmate confronts you with love. The shadow manipulates you with fear. The soulmate shows you your flaws with compassion. The shadow makes you feel guilty for simply existing. Many people confuse attachment with love, and in doing so, they end up stuck in marriages that are merely repeating childhood trauma. When you marry the shadow, you're usually repeating a dynamic you experienced with your parents or caregivers. You're trying to fix something that was never yours to fix. But when you marry your soulmate, it feels like you're finally rebuilding something your soul has longed for. It's not about filling a void, but expanding a presence. That's why so many marriages become painful, because we've been taught to seek comfort, security, and routine, but we forgot to seek truth, depth, and spiritual connection. And your soulmate doesn't come to give you a stable life. They come to give you a life with purpose, with growth, with consciousness, and that often feels uncomfortable at first. Jung said that pain is the messenger of transformation, and maybe your marriage is hurting not because the love is gone, but because your awakening has begun. Because what you once projected as ideal is dissolving, and in its place, there is a chance to see yourself as you truly are, not as the perfect spouse, but as a soul in the middle of healing. That's why you shouldn't fear the signs. They're not a curse, they're invitations. Invitations to investigate your history, your patterns, your wounds, and your deepest desires. If you're in a relationship that looks like love, but feels like a battlefield, you may be facing your shadow. And that doesn't mean you should run away. It means there's something there asking to be healed. And that healing sometimes begins with a quiet decision. The choice to stop surviving and start living with awareness. On the other hand, if you feel you're with someone who sees beyond your masks, who holds you even on hard days, who walks beside you without dimming your light, then maybe you found something rare, a soul bond, an ancient reunion, something that can't be explained, but can be felt in every gesture, in every look, in every silence that doesn't need to be filled. And even if this marriage isn't easy, it won't be toxic, because true love may challenge you, but it never destroys you. It opens paths. It brings light into darkness, and it invites you to become everything you already are but had forgotten. In the end, it doesn't matter what label you give it, soulmate or shadow, love or attachment. What matters is what it's revealing about you, because every relationship is a bridge between who you are and who you're still becoming. And some bridges are there to carry you forward, others to show you where you're still afraid to go, and maybe, just maybe, your heart already knows the answer. If this message is already resonating with you, it's not by chance. We often don't see our emotional patterns until they break us open. That's why many turn to shadow work and deep healing. If you're ready to go deeper, the Jung method is a powerful place to start. The link is pinned in the first comment. Now, let's shift into the part of the story no one talks about. The beautiful part. The part where healing begins. Because while it's true that many people marry their shadow, it's also true that many others finally meet their soulmate. Often after they've walked through fire. Real soulmates don't arrive with grand fanfare or perfection. They come with depth. They come with presence. And more importantly, they come with space. Space for your emotions. Space for your voice. Space for your wounds. When you're with your soulmate, something inside you softens. Even when you're triggered, even when you're learning and stretching, there is this underlying sensation of safety. Not because everything is perfect, but because nothing feels threatening to your soul. One of the clearest signs that you've married your soulmate is that your nervous system, even in hard conversations, feels more stable than it ever did in other relationships. You don't feel the urge to hide, to shrink, to run. You feel called to stay present, to breathe through the moment. And when that happens, it's not just love, it's alchemy. It's two souls meeting at the edge of everything they once feared and choosing to remain open. Another powerful sign is emotional mirroring, but without projection. With a shadow partner, the mirroring feels aggressive. Your insecurities get magnified and thrown back at you with blame or silence. But with a soulmate, the reflection is gentle. They help you see your patterns, but not through judgment. They do it by holding the mirror with compassion, with patience, with a presence that says, "I see you, and I'm still here." This kind of love teaches you how to breathe again, and not just with your lungs, with your spirit, You begin to relax into who you really are. You no longer feel the pressure to be perfect, to perform, or to constantly please. And that, by itself, is transformative. Because when a soul has spent years being on guard, even one moment of true emotional safety is enough to start healing. Lifetimes of pain, soulmate energy isn't always easy, but it is consistent. Your arguments don't feel like threats. They feel like openings. You don't fear abandonment every time there's a disagreement. Instead, you feel a shared intention to understand and grow. It doesn't mean there's no pain. It means that pain isn't weaponized. It's honored, witnessed, and moved through, together. There is also a distinct kind of silence in a soulmate marriage, not the cold, avoidant silence of shadow bonds, but a sacred silence, one where you sit beside each other without words, yet everything is understood. You don't feel the urge to fill every space with conversation or performance. Their presence is enough, and that presence becomes a kind of home, not built with walls, but with soul. One of the most beautiful signals of soulmate union is inner alignment. You begin to notice that you're not just growing individually, you're evolving together, sometimes without even planning it. You'll realize you're healing parallel wounds, discovering similar lessons, facing mirrored challenges, and instead of competing or retreating, you lean in, you support, you synchronize. That is not coincidence. It is soul memory reactivating. And yes, physical intimacy changes, too. It becomes less about performance and more about connection. With the shadow, intimacy can be addictive, dramatic, or even destructive. But with the soulmate, it's grounding. You feel seen, touched, not just in the body, but in the soul. And afterward, instead of feeling drained or confused, you feel more whole, more rooted, more alive. There is a sacredness in that space, and your body knows it. Another sign is how your inner child reacts to their presence. When you're with the shadow, your inner child is often scared, tense, or trying to earn love. But with your soulmate, your inner child feels safe enough to come out and play, to laugh, to express, to trust again. And that shift is monumental, because your inner child is the guardian of your joy. If they feel safe, it's because the energy around them is honest. Soulmate relationships also change your view of love itself. You begin to release the fairy tales. You stop chasing intensity for the sake of feeling alive. You understand that love is not measured by chaos or passion, but by how much of your truth you're allowed to live in that bond. You realize that stability is not boring, it's revolutionary. Because for someone who grew up in emotional storms, peace is the most unfamiliar and most healing frequency. Marriage with a soulmate doesn't mean perfection. There will be triggers, there will be days of silence and miscommunication, but there will also be repair. Not just the apology, the effort, the learning, the desire to do better, not because of fear, but because of love. And that is what turns simple compatibility into soul-deep commitment. You'll know you've married your soulmate when you feel more like yourself than ever. And yet, at the same time, you feel yourself becoming someone entirely new. Not because you're changing for them, but because you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. That's the kind of love that doesn't complete you. It reveals you. And here's something few will say. A soulmate doesn't just support your healing, they inspire your mission. You begin to feel a deeper call in life, a clearer voice inside that says, now that you are loved in wholeness, what will you give back to the world? They don't distract you from your purpose, they anchor you in it. They don't demand your energy, they multiply it. And in doing so, they remind you that love is not a destination, it is the beginning of everything else. If you find yourself in a relationship that feels quiet yet deep, where emotional safety is normal, where growth happens naturally, where you laugh more than you fight, and where your soul keeps saying yes, even when your ego resists, then listen. That is not ordinary. That is a gift. That is what most people spend lifetimes searching for. And if you have it, nurture it, protect it, water it daily with truth and presence. But if you're still not sure, that's okay too. Sometimes the difference between the shadow and the soulmate is blurred in the beginning. That's because the real difference is not in the other person. It's in how you feel when you're with them. Are you shrinking or expanding? Are you afraid or opening? Are you hiding or being seen? Let your body answer before your mind. Let your breath be the guide. The soul always knows, but the mind often needs time to catch up. And remember this, even the shadow can lead you to the soulmate. Sometimes we must walk through illusion to reach truth. We must fall into the wrong arms to recognize the right ones. We must lose ourselves in the wrong stories to return to the one we were meant to live. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every ache has not been in vain. They were all preparing you, softening you, awakening you. So when your soulmate finally arrives, or when you realize you're already beside them, don't be afraid to let yourself be seen. All of you, the soft parts, the scared parts, the still healing parts, they didn't come to judge you. They came to walk with you, to stand beside you as you become the version of yourself that you forgot existed. And if that sounds like magic, it is, but not the kind you read about in books. The kind you build in quiet mornings, in honest conversations, in conscious effort, in sacred presence. The kind of magic where two people look at each other and whisper without words, "I remember you, I choose you," again and again. That is a soulmate marriage. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real is rare. Now, the question is not whether you found them. The question is whether you're ready to meet them, fully, courageously, and without hiding. Because once you do, love no longer hurts, it transforms. And you, at last, begin to return home.